Good morning, Miss Lesky's health class. I hope you guys are doing well and you guys are staying safe and tucked away in your houses. My name is Lily Keithley and I'm the Prevention and Policy Coordinator with Vibrant Future Coalition, which is a coalition in Clackamas County that works to prevent youth substance abuse by doing stuff like this. So we come to Rex Putnam every week for Unity Club. Shout out to all my Unity Club kids. Hope you guys are doing good. And we also come and give presentations about topics that are super relevant for people your age to health classes. So since the whole coronavirus global pandemic thing's going on, we thought it'd be fun to record some of these and have you do them even though we can't see you face to face. So without further ado, I'm going to be talking to you guys about vaping today, which is a super important topic, especially because I know that a lot of people use nicotine when they're stressed out, and this is an incredibly stressful time. So you should have a worksheet in front of you. We're going to have some questions about that. There are going to be some things to jot down. And then at the end, once you've completed this training and then the presentation from my colleague Rachel, you guys are going to be doing a self-care plan to make sure that you have all the tools that you need to stay safe and healthy during this weird time we find ourselves in. So let's jump into it. So today we're going to be talking about vaping, and by the end of this presentation you should be able to understand basic facts about vaping and the components of vaporizers and e-cigarettes, describe the health effects of vaping, understand the effects of nicotine on the developing brain, and describe the similarities and differences between e-cigarette advertising and tobacco advertising. So we're going to just jump in with nicotine vaping first of all, because that's incredibly popular, especially among people your age. So there are basically three main types of vaping devices. There are tanks and mods, which tend to have big batteries, they tend to be really powerful, and they are refillable. So you buy bottles of vape juice or whatever and fill them, and then that's how you ingest the nicotine. Then you have rechargeable e-cigarettes, so your Juuls of the world, that are multi-use, so they can be used more than once. The pods are interchangeable, and but then once the pods are done, you throw them away and you get more, and you recharge the battery over and over again. And then finally, there's disposable e-cigarettes, which, since Juul has gotten somewhat curtailed by some new legislation, these are becoming more and more popular, especially among high schoolers. So on your worksheet in front of you, jot down three things that these devices have in common. It can be anything from batteries to what they do, anything like that. Batteries, heating mechanism, they all have nicotine or THC, and then of course they have chemical solvents. So chemical solvents are the things that basically allow the THC to get into a person's body, THC or nicotine to get into a person's body safely-ish. So it's the stuff that's kind of around the chemicals themselves that allow it to be ingested by humans. So next up, we are going to watch a quick video.
People have been smoking for at least 7,000 years, but it wasn't until the 1800s that cigarettes became the smoke of choice, after machines were developed to mass produce them. 200 years later, in 2003, the electronic cigarette was invented in China, and since then the use of e-cigarettes, also called vaping, has grown exponentially around the world. E-cigarettes are electronic devices that vaporize a flavored liquid. They all used to look like cigarettes, but now they come in many shapes and sizes. Many look like pens or small boxes called mods. What they all have in common is 1. A power source, usually a lithium battery. 2. An atomizer, which heats the e-liquid. 3. E-liquid or e-juice, which usually contains flavors and nicotine. And 4. A cartridge or tank, which is filled with e-liquid. Heating the e-liquid creates a cloud of vapor that looks like smoke, but without a lot of the lethal components contained in tobacco smoke. Many people assume e-cigarettes are safer than traditional cigarettes because because they don't burn anything or create tar in your lungs. But it took almost 7,000 years for humans to realize that tobacco causes lung cancer, throat and mouth cancer, causes heart attacks and strokes, and damages the lungs. E-cigs, meanwhile, have only been around a little over a decade, so there just hasn't been enough time to figure out what effects they'll have on your body. We do know that e-cigarettes deliver nicotine just like the traditional cigarettes, causing increased heart rate and blood pressure. Nicotine also has powerful effects on the brain. It releases rewarding neurotransmitters in the brain, like dopamine, and changes brain chemistry. It is a stimulant, making people feel more alert, but when it goes away, people crave it even more. It can interfere with the body's own natural ability to make dopamine, and soon the user needs nicotine just to feel normal. The developing brain of teenagers is the most vulnerable to these effects. The powerful addictive nature of nicotine is so high that it's comparable to heroin and cocaine. Besides nicotine, e-cigarettes contain chemical solvents. When heated very high by some of the new e-cigarette devices, these solvents can be transformed into formaldehyde, which is a carcinogen. It causes cancer. These observations are concerning, but we really do not know what the long-term effects from inhaling these chemicals in your lungs will be. E-cigs contain many other chemicals to generate enticing flavors. In fact, there are almost 8,000 different flavors available today, so we don't know very much about many of them. We do know that some of the butter flavorings contain diacetyl, which is famous for causing popcorn lung. Popcorn lung is a disease called bronchiolitis obliterans, which is basically an irreversible scarring and destruction of the delicate lung tissue that can kill you. Strawberry and other healthy-sounding fruit flavors have been found to be cytotoxic and potentially cancer-causing as well. Vaping devices, or specifically the lithium batteries inside them, may explode unpredictably. Although uncommon, this happens frequently enough that e-cigarettes have been banned from luggage on airplanes. Unpredictable explosions have occurred in people's faces and mouths and resulted in serious injuries, including blindness. With these potential risks of e-cigarettes, the addictive nicotine, the exploding batteries, the carcinogenic liquids, why would any company want you to use them? Sales of e-cigarettes approach $8 billion per year and are increasing. The truth is, tobacco cigarettes kill about 50% of people who use them. So tobacco companies, known as Big Tobacco, need to keep recruiting young people to become addicted in order to stay in business. Here are some actual documented quotes from tobacco executives. "We don't smoke that shit, we just sell it. We reserve the right to smoke for the young, the poor, and the stupid. The base of our business is the high school student. The fragile self-image of the young person needs all the support it can get. Smoking may appear to enhance that self-image. Studies show that when people start to smoke in their teens, they become addicted and stay smokers as they grow older, even those who swear they will never become addicted. Many of the same strategies that Big Tobacco used to hook your grandparents into smoking tobacco cigarettes have simply been modified and are being used today with an e-cig in place of a tobacco cig. E-cigarettes come in candy and dessert flavors like Skittles, gummy bears, and vanilla cupcake, directly aimed at teens. Ads always show thin, beautiful people vaping. Even the strategic use of humor is being successfully used to get customers on their side. The bottom line is that we are all faced with important personal choices every day. We don't yet know everything we need to know to make informed decisions about many things, but we can resist being manipulated. Take your time when making your own personal decisions. It can make all the difference.
Alright, so now that you've seen that video, I am going to get a little bit more in depth into some of the concepts that we covered just now. So just give me a half a sec to get my PowerPoint back up here, and we will dive into a little bit more specifics about nicotine vaping and then a few more specifics about THC as well. So with that in mind, nicotine is, as they said, a natural chemical in the tobacco plant that is toxic to the human body and poisonous if ingested. So basically, it is a plant, and it comes from a plant, and then it is removed from the plant and concentrated and put into e-liquid, like the stuff that you would put on your inside of your vaporizer. Nicotine is just as addictive as heroin and cocaine. So just because it's not as dangerous doesn't mean that your brain doesn't have the potential to get very, very addicted to it. It can cause heart attack, stroke, and nicotine poisoning. So I don't know if you guys have friends who vape or if you've seen people vape, but sometimes people will hit their vapes too much and they'll start to feel really nauseous and dizzy and generally just bad. And that's nicotine poisoning, essentially. So it can cause everything from nausea and fatigue, which are pretty common, all the way up to migraines, high blood pressure, and seizures. So there are some pretty serious consequences if you ingest too much nicotine. Also, if you've ever had a presentation from us before, you probably know this already, but despite the legal age of consent in the United States being 18, your brain doesn't actually fully develop until you're 25. So basically those connections that are being made when you're learning how to do all these things and when you're in school, when you're using nicotine, your brain is also learning to make those connections, only the connections that it's making in regards to nicotine are give me more nicotine. So this stage is really, really, really important for ensuring that you have a healthy brain that has healthy habits all the way through your lives, and throwing a powerful chemical like nicotine into the mix can really disrupt some of those really essential pathways. And there have been some studies that have shown that in adolescence, nicotine can cause anxiety, depression, increased impulsivity, and memory problems. And 1 Juul pod is equivalent to an entire pack of cigarettes worth of nicotine. So you hit your Juul a couple of times, that's like smoking 4 or 5 cigarettes instead of just, less. So vaping THC and cannabis is similar, but obviously the ingredients in THC give you different effects. And some marijuana concentrates are made using solvents, so things that basically break chemicals down into other chemicals. So things like butane, which is actually lighter fluid, and other petrochemicals, so things that are made from gasoline products, to actually extract the THC out of the plant and get it into the vaporizing cartridge. Marijuana concentrates are also incredibly potent, whereas a normal joint might have 10, 20, 30% THC. Marijuana concentrates have anywhere from like 50 to 90% THC. So using them is much, much, much more powerful than smoking a traditional joint, and that's part of why they can be really dangerous. So I'm sure you guys remember back in 2019, there's a huge panic about EVALI, which is e-cigarette or vaporizer-associated lung injury. So that was all the people that were going to the hospital because they couldn't breathe and their lungs had been damaged, and everybody was blaming vaping, and it turns out they were right. Vitamin E acetate has been described by the Centers for Disease Control, who are the people who regulate all this stuff, as being the likely culprit in all of these vaping-related injuries and deaths. And all of those were found, and vitamin E acetate was found in products that were made on the black market, it was found in products that were made on the gray market, and it was found in products that were sold completely legally in states with legal marijuana markets. So it was a problem spread all the way across the spectrum of illegality, and it just goes to show you, you really never know exactly what is in those cartridges. And the question that we want to ask you is, how does that impact your ability to make informed decisions about your body? So in front of you on your worksheet, please jot down 2 places you think you could get accurate information about vaping cannabis. And if you don't know any, here are a couple that we recommended. So teen.smokefree.gov is a great website made for teens that has a ton of great resources, lots of like online support, and then flavorshookkids.org is from California and also provides a ton of good information about vaping and about THC. So the health risks, short and long term, they can be a little bit difficult to figure out because, as I said in the video, we've been smoking tobacco for thousands of years and just figured out that it caused stroke and cancer relatively. We've only had e-cigarettes for like 10 years. That's not that long to know what either the short or long-term effects are, especially the long-term effects. As I mentioned earlier, often vaping can have an impact on your lungs, and it increases your risk of heart attack, stroke, and addiction. Students who vape are 3 times more likely to start smoking cigarettes. And another impact on the lungs that is especially relevant right now is early studies have shown that people who vape or smoke are more likely to have serious complications from coronavirus. So now is a great time to quit if you are so inclined and if you are using. And now is also a great time to encourage your friends and family to quit so that they can take care of their lungs and hopefully not contract the coronavirus. So, as I said earlier, we just haven't had vapes long enough to really know if they are harmful in the long term or not, for sure. So the question is, do you want to be a guinea pig for a gigantic corporation? I hope not, and I hope that this information really informs your decision making moving forward. Another key part of this whole conspiracy from Big Tobacco is advertising. So in the early days of Juul and some of the other companies that are notorious for marketing towards people who are underage, they used a lot of Instagram advertising, a lot of advertising on Snapchat, and a lot of advertising on Facebook. So these are all platforms, especially Facebook or especially Instagram and Snapchat, that mostly young people are using. And I'm curious if you guys have heard of any of these brands through social media. They have mostly stopped advertising via social media now, but you still see them occasionally. So vaping was, up until a few months ago, allowed to be advertised and widely advertised. And some of the ads on social media were pretty much copies of advertising for Big Tobacco. Here's a few examples for you, just so that you can start to spot these patterns and understand where they come from. So on the right here, we have an ad for Newport, which is a brand of cigarettes. We have a bunch of young people. This looks like it was in the 90s and is a print advertisement who look like they're having a grand old time smoking cigarettes. On the left, we have this Instagram ad from Juul, which shows, instead of people smoking in the great outdoors, it looks like they're having a blast vaping at a party. And all these people are beautiful, they look like they're having an awesome time, and so vaping must be great, right? Wrong. Here's another one. This is an ad for Parliaments. That's Audrey Hepburn there, if you know who she is. And all along the brim of her hat, those are cigarettes. And she looks elegant and beautiful, and you'll want everyone to know you're so smart to smoke. Parliaments. And there you go, almost the exact same ad, but updated for the 21st century. We have some of the similar visual themes, so the stripes, and we have a beautiful woman saying, "You are smart if you smoke this," and it is intensely satisfying. This one is from the 20s or 30s, and this one's for Lucky Strikes, and it's a young, beautiful couple who are clearly together, who want to be together forever and ever, and it's this like promise that you can, if you smoke Lucky Strikes, you'll be together forever, even though it actually decreases your life expectancy. And then we have a similar ad on the left of 2 people hitting the same Juul. So these ads have been shown to work. They were the ads that got our grandparents and great-grandparents addicted to cigarettes in the first place, and now they have been coated and wrapped up in this fancy new packaging called Instagram and sold back to you guys once again. So a lot of these ads make vaping seem fun and cool and exciting and all of that, but At the end of the day, vaping is a risky choice that can have serious health consequences, especially in light of the respiratory virus pandemic that we're all currently living through. So if you need any more resources or have more questions about this, feel free. You can always reach out to me and to my colleague Rachel, and we can answer questions for you. If you want to talk about this, you can reach out to us via email and we can talk to you remotely since everybody's staying in their homes right now. There's also lots of great information at teen.smokefree.gov, and the Oregon Youth Line has lots of great resources for folks who want to quit or have questions about vaping in general. So you can either text teen to teen, number 2 to 839-863, or you can just head over to their website, OregonYouthLine.org. So with that just about wraps it up for me. Thank you so much for sitting through this whole presentation. I hope that you are staying safe, and I hope that you are not going too stir crazy with your fam and your siblings if you have any. So take care of those self-care plans. We can't wait to see them, and stay safe out there. Have a great day.